With the end of Season of the Wish and the beginning of the final shape rapidly approaching, I wanted to take a snapshot of the current meta in Destiny 2. For the next few weeks, I'll be taking a look at each of the subclasses in the game. For new or returning players, these videos should act as a guide to what will be strong options to use in the final shape. For veteran players, these videos will be a deep look into the meta of Destiny and what certain subclasses might be lacking or what they do exceptionally well. We'll be looking at PvE, PvP, and every class. Hunters, Warlocks, and Titans. I'll be rating each subclass, as well as giving build recommendations for each class. No matter what you play, or how long you've been playing, this video should be a great resource going into the final shape. So, let's jump in. Hey everyone, I'm Rozeki, and welcome to my analysis of the State of the Void subclass in Destiny 2. As always, your support is greatly appreciated. 92% of my viewers are not yet subscribed, so if you are enjoying the videos, don't forget to subscribe to the channel to be notified of future uploads. I'll be uploading these meta-analysis videos over the next couple weeks, and you won't want to miss any of them. But with all my self-plugging out of the way, let's talk about Void. Void was our first introduction into the subclass 3.0 system during the Witch Queen expansion. Void at the time was one of the strongest options in the game, due significantly to being the only 3.0 subclass available at the time, as well as having artifact mod support also available at the time. As of Season of the Wish, Void is no longer the only 3.0 subclass, and it currently has no support in the seasonal artifact. But does this mean Void is bad? I don't think so. But to understand why that is, we need to look at the strengths and weaknesses of the subclass. Void is primarily a defensive subclass. Tools such as invisibility, overshields, and devour keep you alive, while others such as weaken and suppression keep enemies crowd controlled and less of a threat. While Void is usually defensive or utilitarian, there is also an option to be offensive depending on what you build into. One of the strongest effects in the Void kit is Volatile, which gives you the option to defeat large groups of enemies with ease. Although Volatile and certain specific builds allow for Void to excel at ad clear, it typically tends to fall short in multi-target clearing AoE damage. Void also lacks a solid DPS option, with Nova Bomb on Warlock being the largest source of burst damage among all of the subclasses. Void, like other subclasses, is also at the mercy of seasonal artifact mods, exotic support, and weapon availability. Season of the Wish and Season of the Witch provided little support to Void in favor of Strand and Solar mods instead. Since August 2023, Void has been out of the limelight due to this lack of support. Exotic support on Void is mixed, with some classes receiving the best exotics in the game period, while others are caught lacking. We'll go deeper into this once we talk about each individual class. Speaking of, I think it's time we do just that. First up, we have Night Stalkers, or our Void Hunters. Hunter is where Void truly shines. In PvE, Void Hunter is hyper consistent. Regardless of seasonal artifact mods, there is a lot of tools available to you Void Hunters. You have two major options, support and utility, or offensive ad clear. For general content, Gerfalcon's Halberg is going to be your best choice. This exotic allows for offensive playing, giving you volatile rounds on your Void weapons when leaving invisibility. In combination with the stylish Executioner aspect, you'll have almost infinite uptime on volatile rounds. Clearing ads will be no issue. Again, for most general content in the game, strikes, seasonal activities, etc., an offensive Gerfalcon's build will be perfect. If you want to play Grandmaster Nightfalls, you'll want to take one of the greatest builds ever introduced into Destiny, the Omnioculus Hunter. This is our defensive and support option. This is probably the most consistent build in Destiny history, period. Not only does playing Omnioculus Hunter pretty well mean that you'll have infinite invisibility, but your teammates will as well. Not only will staying invisible keep you alive, but you'll be able to take out targets easily, then immediately return to the safety of the shadows. You will also be able to act as a medic for your team, using your invisibility to easily revive down teammates in difficult positions, and you can safely capture objectives without worrying about dying in combat. If you're looking for an evergreen build for Grandmaster Nightfalls, Omnioculus Hunter is the perfect option. More recently, we've seen a bit of a surge in a slightly different version of Void Hunter for players who choose to tackle 50 Wave Onslaught. Players have been drawn to the Orpheus Rig exotic due to its incredible uptime on Deadfall, our super. Deadfall tethers shut down pretty much every enemy in sight, while at the same time refilling your super meter for each tethered enemy. If used correctly, you'll have access to your super the majority of the time, and it makes winning 50 waves of Onslaught much, much easier. Orpheus Rig builds can be taken into other content, but unless the activity has a large number of enemies all at the same time, it won't be nearly as effective as either Gerfalcons or Omnioculus. In PvP, Night Stalkers are the middle of the road. Over the years, we've seen Void Hunters go from being overpowered, like during the Omnioculus Lord of Wolves meta, to being the last choice, and pretty much anywhere in between. Currently, going invisible isn't as strong as you would expect, since now invisible players are still going to be pinged on your radar, and keen-eyed players will still be able to spot an invisible hunter with no problem. Notably, you have access to snare bombs, which can be strategically placed to slow and disorient players walking past them, as well as access to the ever-powerful scatter grenade, which can one-shot any guardian you throw it at. For your super, you'll be most likely taking one of the two shadow shot options, both suppressing enemies and forcing them to look in a random direction. You'll be able to pick them off pretty easily after using it. Overall, you can make Void Hunter work in PvP, but it's not the strongest pick, and is mostly reserved for endgame PvE activities instead. Void Warlocks are in a very unique place, and also in a very tragic place. Void Warlocks are all about applying debuffs to enemies and granting Devour to yourself. Void Souls are one of the key components of the Voidwalker kit. Void Souls are a powerful form of soft crowd control, where they create a zone for a short time that weakens and drains any enemy caught inside. Voidwalkers are all about Devour and staying alive. Devour is the Void effect that grants health and grenade energy, and is the most potent on Warlock because of the Feed the Void aspect. Warlocks are all about ability spam, and there are a number of ways to make this happen on Void. Nezarec Sin is a quintessential Void Warlock exotic, and grants additional ability recharge rates when you kill an enemy using Void damage. The other spam option is my personal favorite, Briarbinds, which lets you lean heavily into Void Souls instead. There are a number of other Void exotics Warlocks have access to, but the majority are not that useful, or at the very least, are not nearly as good as the ones I just mentioned. Tragically, Void Warlocks are in a tough spot. On one hand, this is one of the most fun subclasses in the game. You can spam abilities, keep yourself alive easily, and keep enemies at bay with AoE weaken effects. But Warlocks are missing a few key things. For one, they have no access to a good super option. Nova Warp is a roaming super and traditionally has not been very useful at all across the board. On the other hand, Nova Bomb is a burst damage super that does less damage than other burst supers available in the game. This makes Void a worse choice for raids and dungeons where boss damage is an important component for any build. The other major issue is that Warlocks just outclass themselves. I'll talk more about the other subclasses in detail later, but Warlocks are almost always better off picking Solar. Well of Radiance is one of the best, if not the best super in the game, and Solar also has access to Restoration, Cure, and ability spam. In addition, the best form of crowd control is Death, and Void's reliance on soft CC pales in comparison to the AoE damage found on Solar. For general content, Void Warlock is an incredibly fun subclass to play and will be effective to use. Even in slightly higher level content, the sustain provided by Devour and the AoE weaken and debuffs will help keep you alive, and will most likely find success even if it isn't the most meta option available. In raids, dungeons, or other activities that may require higher levels of ad clear or damage, Void Warlock will not serve you nearly as well. Missing a solid burst DPS super for boss damage and not having as many ad clear options as other subclasses means you'll just be at a disadvantage. If you're looking for good sustain, you will be happy with Voidwalker though. In PvP, Void Warlocks are much better. Where Void falls short in PvE, it excels here. Void Souls are able to provide strong area denial and map control for choke points, and our Nova Bomb super will chase players to the ends of the earth to kill them. Nova Bomb is also a great choice in Trials of Osiris, since it's able to easily defeat Bubble Titans and Well of Radiance Warlocks. As a bonus, Void Warlocks also have access to Blink, which when used correctly, makes it very hard for your opponents to track your position. Just like on Hunter, Void Grenades are powerful across the board, with Vortex Grenades able to lock down small areas of the map, and of course, well-placed Scatter Grenades being able to quickly kill opponents. Finally, we have Titans. Sentinels are by far in the worst spot in PvE, while simultaneously being at the best place in PvP. Fitting the Titan power fantasy, Void Titans are all about getting overshields and protecting their allies. Every aspect and ability has an interaction with overshields. Even though Titans are all about overshields, there is actually no consistent way to gain overshields. All built-in methods of gaining them are reliant on long cooldowns, and that's whether you're doing it through the melee or the barricade ability. To gain overshields more easily, you'll need to rely on weapons for the most part. Vexcalibur and weapons with Repulsor Brace will provide the most value here, but relying on external factors To utilize a core feature of the Void Titan kit makes it hard to really take advantage of the subclass. Titans are also severely lacking in terms of super options. Like Hunters and Warlocks alike, Void supers tend to be utilitarian, or are lacking burst DPS. Ward of Dawn in PvE will protect you and allies while providing a damage buff, but you need to make the trade-off between staying in the safety of the bubble or leaving to take advantage of the damage buff, since you can't shoot enemies while inside the bubble. For boss damage phases, bubble becomes cumbersome, with players popping in and out to regain the damage buff, and it runs the risk of players killing themselves with rockets accidentally hitting the bubble. Bubble is useful in Grandmaster content for rezzing teammates in difficult positions, or as a panic button for staying alive, but it's still not great. Sentinel Shield is also not a great choice. Again, for Grandmasters, using the block feature helps to shield teammates from damage, but using it as a roaming offensive super is not nearly as useful. In lower difficulty content, it's fine, as with pretty much every other roaming super in the game. Void Titan also suffers from a lack of strong exotic armor support. Even with a good quantity of exotics available, they have either A, been power crept out of the game, or B, are just not very useful as is. Helm of Saint 14, for example, is less useful because bubbles are not very strong in PvE, and since it's tied to your super, it's not going to provide much during most gameplay. To make Helm useful, you'll most likely need to utilize Edge of Action, the Titan Exotic Glaive, to have more access to bubble effects. But again, that requires a reliance on weapons outside the Void kit itself. Doomfang pauldrons are decent, but you could gain a similar effect with surge mods on your armor, and the other effect is, again, reliant on your super. Overall, the Void-specific exotics available to Titans are not as useful as they could be, and don't bring enough to the table to make the subclass feel more cohesive. Things change, however, when looking at PvP. Void Titans are the single biggest menace in the Crucible. Being the only class with easy access to overshields from within their kit, and easy application of Volatile from Controlled Demolitionist makes Titans nearly unkillable, while also simultaneously defeating you and nearby allies quickly. Void Titans can charge their enemies without worrying too much about being picked off, and just like the other subclasses, they have scatter grenades to pick off easy kills. On top of everything, Ward of Dawn is the single strongest super in PvP, especially in Trials of Osiris or other zone control modes. Not only is Bubble a "you can't hurt me" button, but it's incredibly difficult to counter unless you have a burst DPS super like Nova Bomb or Blade Barrage. Some supers will even bounce off of a bubble with no effect at all, such as Silence and Squall from Stasis Hunters. If you are a Titan player, I would strongly suggest trying Void in PvP, as it is almost entirely unmatched among other options, especially within the Titan class itself. Now that we've talked about every class individually, let's figure out where exactly Void stands in the meta, and what recommendations I have for players who are interested in using this subclass. All in all, Void is the most consistent subclass in the game. It is always a decent choice for any of the classes, even if sometimes it lacks some features that can make it shine more. If you're looking for a subclass that in general will usually be a solid choice, Void will always be there. It's never the worst option, but unless it's supported by the seasonal artifact, it usually isn't the best of the best either. If you are a Hunter player, throw everything I just said out the window. Omnioculus Hunter is one of the greatest builds in the entire game for endgame PvE. I highly recommend any player pick up this build if you are at all interested in the Invisible Assassin power fantasy, or are looking for something that could easily carry you and your team through difficult content. In lower difficulties and more solo play, Gerfalcon's Halberd will be the better option, allowing you to easily clear adds, with the added benefit of occasional bonus overshields and invisibility. Warlocks, you can find success using Void in most general content, and sometimes in higher level content. But if you're looking for a build that will suit you for the vast majority of what you play, Void is not the best option. It's fun to play, and has some awesome exotics like Briarbinds, but falls short in comparison to other subclasses, especially Solar. Titans, if you're looking for a PvP build, Void is your best friend. With so many tools that make Titans unkillable, paired with everything else in their kit, you'll be taking over the Crucible and attaining easy, flawless cards in Trials. For PvE, Titans rely on overshields, but will find trouble acquiring them consistently while on long ability cooldowns. I would recommend staying away from Void Titan in PvE unless you have a specific need for something like Ward of Dawn, or you are interested in trying a specific build. If I were to give Void a rating in the current state of the game, I would give it a solid B. It's consistent, but only excels in a handful of cases. Most of the time, it's not the best choice, being overshadowed by other subclasses in the game. Hunters will benefit the most from taking Void, while the other subclasses may find it lacking quite a bit. The lack of recent support from the artifact has really pushed Void out of the spotlight, and hopefully with the release of the final shape, we'll see some artifact mods that will help bring Void's advantages back to light. If you're looking to try a Void build out for yourself, I've left a dim link to my recommended builds for each class in the video description. And of course, if you have any thoughts of your own about the Void subclass, let me know in the comment section on this video or over in our Discord server, also linked in the video description. Oh, and let me know which subclass you'd like me to look at next. We've still got Solar, Arc, and Strand to cover. If you're looking for my State of Stasis video, I've left a link for that as well in the video description. And finally, if you did enjoy the video, don't forget to subscribe to the channel to be notified for future videos, and don't forget to leave a like as well. But I think that's all I've got for now. As always, I've been Rizeki, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.